Welcome to AnyLogic. Let me show you around. When you launch AnyLogic, the first thing you see is the welcome page. Here you can create a new model, you can open examples, and you can access tutorials and educational resources. For more examples, you can navigate over to example models. There are hundreds of example models, and you can even search for specific kinds of models. So for example, maybe I'm interested in a model that represents some kind of supply chain. So I can type supply chain into the search box, and there are several different examples that include a supply chain, whether it's an oil supply chain, product delivery, a beer distribution game, supply chain and product diffusion model. There are tons of different examples. But maybe we're not quite ready for a supply chain model. We can go back and we can also navigate through lists of models. We can look at them by category and so forth. Now to navigate away from the welcome screen and get into the AnyLogic workspace, just click the close button or the X on the welcome tab. And now we're in the AnyLogic workspace. On the left side here, we have the projects and palette panel. In the center, we have the graphical editor, and off to the right, we have the properties panel. However, without a model open, there's not too much to see here. So if we want to either go back to the welcome screen or go directly to the example models area of the welcome screen, we can go to help, and you can either click welcome to go back to the welcome screen, or go directly to example models by clicking example models. So now we're back to our list of examples, and let's take a look at maybe this billing department example. So I'll click it and open it. It may take a few seconds to open because it's being downloaded from the cloud. But here we see there's a little bit more going on in our projects and palette panel on the left, our graphical editor, as well as our properties pane. So this model aims to evaluate how a billing department handles both regular bills and bills where they have a special contract with how they are handled and invoiced. Plus, it also aims to account for the fact that some invoices and accounts may be intercepted by a supervisor for auditing. So what we see in our graphical editor right now is the main agent of the model. And this is where the model is really sketched out and organized to illustrate, in this case, a process. And that process is processing bills. And bills have to interface with senior billers, account billers, printers, billing clerks. And we see a lot of lines illustrating the different paths that things may take through the system before they're ultimately printed and mailed off. So this model includes that process, and it has a bill agent. The agent for the bill describes the characteristics of the bill element going through the model. Now, just about everything we see on the graphical interface has associated properties with it. So right now we see the properties for the overall billing department model. But if we click just about anything in the graphical editor, new properties will appear. Maybe we want to look at the utilization of our account billers, the bar chart that illustrates how utilized or busy they are. I'll click it, and it's called chart 1. There, I can adjust the settings to address whether the data going into it is updated automatically. I can determine when it should function, whether it should use the model time or specific calendar dates, how the data are fed into the chart and how it's illustrated. In this case, the bar is medium blue, and it gathers information about the utilization of the account biller element of the model. You can also open some of these other areas of the properties like appearance. So here you can adjust, for example, the direction of the bar chart, the relative width, and so forth. When you're done with a specific section under properties, you can just click the name of the section and it is closed up again. We can also drag the boundaries of the different panels to increase what we can actually see in our graphical editor. And that's pretty common. Having all three panels of equal size is not always terribly helpful or easy when you're trying to set up the different elements of the model. When you're pulling things into the graphical editor to include in a model, you switch from the projects view to the palette view. In this case, this model is looking at a process, the process of handling, invoicing, and bills. So it takes a lot of elements from the process modeling library. And here we have space markup, which is stuff we can put on to pull into our agent in the graphical editor to actually define the movement and flows of things. And then the blocks refer to specific processes. So in this case, with a process, we might have a block to source or where our, in this case, bills come from, where they emerge, as well as syncing, which is where agents and elements in a model are destroyed or disposed of. We can also add delays, queues, etc. There are several different libraries, and you can choose between them by hovering over these icons on the left side, and you can actually see the names of some of the different libraries. So material handling library, pedestrian library. Let's just take a quick look at the road traffic library just so you can see the difference between the options. So the space markup, we see road, intersection, bus stop, parking lot as things that we can then create on our graphical editor. We would just click and drag them into the graphical editor. And the blocks are related specifically to things that we would be needing to move a car through a physical space or network. But in this case, we're looking at a billing department, so the process modeling library is probably what we want to be working with. If we go back to the project pane, we can see the different components and elements of the billing department model, information about how to run the simulation itself, as well as connections to a database if there's a database supplying information and additional resources utilized by this model. In this case, there's just several images that are used to indicate different things. So for example, we have our idle biller and our busy biller. And we can go back up the tree and close that up to actually look at and preview the simulation element once you've finalized and perfected your model and feeling pretty good about it. You can open up the simulation main element and you can see sort of a title as well as a summary of what's going on in this model, as well as the properties of running the simulation experiment itself. So how many different types of each bill should be arriving per hour by default, as well as the model time. So how fast do you want the model to run? Do you want to specifically define a time when the model stops? Is there a specific start time and or date you want to run the model from? Do you need to introduce some randomness to the model? All of these elements are featured here. And when you're ready to run a simulation, you just click the green Run button and a window will appear that has that title and description of the model as outlined in the simulation main window. And when you're ready to run the model, you can click the Run or Play button and it will show you that interface of the main agent of the model, so we can see all of our different stages in the model, things going through billing clerks, senior billers, account billers, and bills going off to the printer. We have counts of how many bills have been processed by each step of the process. This is a pretty fancy model, so there are some ways to toggle the arrival of different bills per hour. So we're starting with 10 regular bills and 3 of our special contract bills. We can speed that up if we don't think our billers are busy enough. So to do that, you can just click and drag the ball over, and suddenly they're getting a lot more of these contract bills, and the utilization of our senior billers has gone up, as has with our account biller. This simulation also features some charts and graphics that illustrate how things have gone and the productivity of the department so far. And if we don't think it's moving fast enough, you can slow down or speed up models by clicking these clock symbols with the plus or the minus symbol. So if double time is not fast enough, we can click that a few times and really ramp things up. So there's lots of action going on in our model now. Because this model doesn't have a set time that it stops, when you're ready to close out and you're finished with a model, you can click the stop button and it stops where it is and takes you back to that initial screen with the title and the description of what's going on in the model. So that's a really high level overview of the AnyLogic interface and some of the common things that you're going to be interfacing with. Before you know it, you're going to be building some great models and running some fabulous simulation experiments.